Hi everyone, this video is about the coordinate plane. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but before we do, I want to show you a set of points. And if I said, all right, go ahead and pick a point, and then I want you to give me a description of your point. Well, if you're just describing what your point looked like, they all look the same. So if I was trying to guess which point maybe you chose, then you would have to give me some hints about where your point is in relation to the other points. And that can be kind of hard to do. Maybe you pick this point over here. That one might be easy because you could say, well, it's the one that's in the most, that's the highest and it's to the left. That would be an easy one. But if I pick one that's in like a group that's pretty close together, then it might be hard to get a person to guess it. Well, if I took my pen and I drew two lines like this, then I have an easier way of identifying points. So maybe you chose this point right here. Well, then you could say, well, it's in the lower left corner, but it's the highest point closest to where the lines intersect. Okay, so it gives you just more tools to be able to locate the different points. And that's really all the coordinate plane is. It's a tool that helps us locate points. So let's go ahead and look at our notes. If you open it up, your coordinate plane is going to look like this. And I'm sure you saw this last year. It's created using two lines, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. But this is a picture of your coordinate plane. So the coordinate plane is a grid that makes it easy to locate points on a plane using an ordered pair. And we'll talk about what an ordered pair is in just a minute. All right, so next we have ordered pair, and that's two numbers that are used to locate a point on a coordinate plane. So if I was trying to use this coordinate plane down here to locate a point, I would need two numbers to help me do that. And we'll talk about that, what that looks like in just a minute, although you may already know. Next word is a quadrant. You can see that the two lines here are it's dissecting, or it's dividing the graph into these four parts right here, these like four different sections. Each of those sections is called a quadrant, and they all have a special number, each of the four sections. So this right here is called quadrant 1, and then this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this right here is quadrant 4. All right. And you may have noticed that I'm using Roman numerals to identify the numbers, and I'm not sure why they do that. Maybe it's to separate them from the numbers on the graph, but they do. And one of the things you'll be asked to do is when you find a point is to locate the quadrant it's in as well. So you're going to need to know what each of these sections, what number goes with each of these sections. Sometimes that's kind of hard to do because we're not sure where to start. Well, one little trick you can use to remember where the quadrants are is to remember that you're working in a coordinate plane. So coordinate plane, the C is the beginning of the word coordinate. And if you took and you drew a giant C on your graph, we would start here and we would go around this way. Okay, that's the same direction as the numbers in your quadrants. So we're starting here, that's quadrant 1, we're going this direction, so 2, 3, and 4. So that's just a little quick tip to help you remember the quadrants. All right, the x-axis would be our next vocabulary word that we want to know. So these two lines here that are used to form the coordinate plane are called your axis. And then this one that goes left and right is called your x-axis. And you can see right here, it's usually already written there for you, but this is the x-axis. And so it is the horizontal number line on the coordinate plane. So it's going to be going left and right. Oops, sorry. Quadrant right here is one of the four sections on the coordinate plane. All right, so your x-axis is going horizontally, and then the line that goes up and down is known as the y-axis. You can see the y written right here. It's the vertical number line on the coordinate plane, so that would be going up and down like this. The origin is the point in the middle of the graph where the two lines intersect. So that would be at this point right here. This is your origin. It's the center of the coordinate plane where they intersect. And then x is the first number in an ordered pair, and it tells you to move left or right on the x-axis. So you're going to see an ordered pair, you're going to see a group of numbers like these down here. And these are numbers that can be graphed on a coordinate plane. So you're always going to have two numbers. So this ordered pair up here, if we go back here, you're going to have the number that comes first is your x coordinate, and the number that comes second is your y coordinate. So it's going to be, it'll look like this in parentheses. The first one is x and the second one's y. That's what this is saying right here. X is the first number in the ordered pair, and so y would be the second number in the ordered pair. And the second number tells you to move not left or right, but now up or down. Okay, and notice the y-axis goes up and down, and the x-axis goes left and right, so they coordinate with that. All right, so how do we use this to locate points? Let's give it a try. Down here, we want to graph the point A, which is 2, 3. So remember, x is first, and it tells us to go left and right. So you always want to start from the origin. That's that point in the middle. That's 0 right here in the center. And if you forget where x is, you can always look over here. All right, so I know x is first, and then y. It's alphabetical, if that helps you remember. So x means I'm going to go left or right first, just like my x-axis. So from 0, I want to go to positive 2. Well, that would be this direction. So I'm going to go over to 2, and then the y-coordinate is 3. And so remember, y tells me to go up or down. So because this is positive, I'm going to go up 3 spaces, or up 3. So from 2, I go up 3. And then where these two kind of match up right here, that's where I'm going to put my point. And because this point is called A, then next to that dot, I'm going to write the letter A. And that just, again, it's just an easy way to identify a point. All right? B, if I start over, now this time, I still start with an x. So again, I'm starting with my horizontal axis, and it's -1 this time. So from 0, I want to go to -1. Well, remember, your negative numbers are to the left. So I'm going to go over to -1. Remember, my second coordinate is my y coordinate, so that tells me up or down. Because it's a +5, I'm going to go up to 5, and then that's where I'm going to put my point here. And this point we're going to call B, so we're going to put B beside the point there. Now, there are different tricks sometimes for people to remember. Some people think, oh, it's like an elevator. I have to walk to the elevator before I can go up or down. So some people remember it's X and then Y, up and down like that. Some people think of airplanes that have to take off. I have to go down the runway before I can get in the air. And whatever helps you remember. But just remember, from 0 is where you're starting. You're always going left and right, and then up or down. All right, let's try C. So again, from 0, I'm going to go to -3. So -3 would be this direction. I'm going to go over to -3. And now I have a -6 that's y. So from -3, this time I'm going to go down because my negatives are down here, all the way to -6. And this is going to be point C. D is 4, -2. So again, I'm starting at 0. I do the 4 first. That would be x. Oh, so I'm going to go over here. -2 would be down. So I'm going to go down to -2. You can see it lines up with the -2 there. So that would be D. Now, sometimes when there's a 0, that can be a little tricky. But it's really the same process you used before. So if I start with the x coordinate, I'm going to start at 0. Because x is 0, there's nowhere to go. I'm already there. I don't have to move left or right. So then I just use the y coordinate. So the y coordinate's 4. That's always up or down, not left or right. So from 0, I go up to 4. And so this one's going to be on the line there. I'm going to call it E. All right, this last one, F, is 5. I'm going to start with 5 first. So from 0, I go over. This would be to the right because it's positive. And then because the y coordinate is 0, that's telling me not to move up or down. It's telling me to stay on 0. So I'm going to put my point right here and call it F. All right, so we talked about quadrants at the beginning. If I wanted to go back and I said, okay, how many points are in quadrant 4? Well, first you would have to know where quadrant 4 is. So I could check my notes. If I've forgotten what my quadrants are, if I remember, then this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want to know how many points are graphed in quadrant 4. And so you could see, oh, there are 2 points here, D and X. That was quadrant 4. So let's just go make a note. Quadrant D, or D was in quadrant 4, just to practice. X is not over here. We're going to use that later. All right, what about if I said, okay, how many points are in quadrant C? Well, or I'm sorry, I gave you the answer. Quadrant 3. So that would be 1, 2, 3. If I look here, the only point in quadrant 3 is C. So next to C, let's write 3. And we're using the Roman numeral just to get used to doing that. Well, if I asked you how many points were in quadrant 1, some of you might say 4. But let's take a look at that. Okay, if you say W is in quadrant 4, you're correct. If you say A is in quadrant 4, you're correct. But if you think E and F are in quadrant 4, you would be incorrect. So why might you think, are those 2 points not in quadrant 4? Well, it's because they're both on a line on one of the axes. And when a point is on an axis, then it's not in a quadrant. It's on an axis. So the only 2 points actually in quadrant 1, right here in quadrant 1, would be W and A. So A is going to be quadrant 1. Same thing with B. If I look at, with quadrant 2. If this is quadrant 2 over here, then I want to know how many points are in quadrant 2. The only points in quadrant 2 are actually B and Z. Y doesn't count because Y is a point on the line. So B is in quadrant 2. All right, and then E and F, what did we decide? F is here, E is here. Those are both on an axis, so they're not in a quadrant. They have no quadrant. All right, the other thing you need to be able to do with a coordinate plane is be able to write the ordered pair that goes with each of the points already on the graph. So what I would have to do for this is find W on my graph. W's right here. I'm going to write in parentheses, and I want my x-coordinate to always come first. Now, there are 2 numbers that sort of meet up to make W. I have a 1 here and a 5 here. So the tricky part is knowing which of these should I write first. What always comes first? X. Where is X? Is it down here or is it up here? Well, you can cheat right here. Look, this is X right here. So the 1 actually comes first because it's your X coordinate. You go over 1 first, and then you'd have to go up to 5. And you can see 5 is right here by the Y, so 5 would be the Y coordinate. Again, it's X and then Y. And it's important to get these in the right order. The reason it's called an ordered pair is because the order matters. It's X always first, Y always second. If we switch it, then we have a different point. We have 5, 1. 5, 1 would be over 5 up 1. It's completely in a different spot. All right, let's look at X. X is down here. So again, we have points, 2 points associated with X. We can go up and see that this is 4. We can go this way and see that that's -4. But we have to make sure we get these points in the right order. I'm going to start with my parentheses, and I know X has to come first. The X coordinate has to come first. Well, X is here. That must mean the 4 is first. And then Y is second. Y is second, so that would be -4. And don't forget the negative because that's what tells you to go down when you're graphing the point. All right, Y. Now sometimes this is tricky because it's on a line where you go through the same steps. We're going to start with parentheses. I've got a 0 here, right? And I've got a -2 here. So I have 2 points or 2 numbers that go with this point. I just have to decide which one is the X and which one is the Y. So when I look at X, this direction, okay, then the number on this axis is what? -2. So -2 is first. And then the Y would be the point that goes with this axis right here. So if I go over, I can see that Y is 0. And this point, you have to go over first. When you go left or right, that's X. We didn't go up or down. So that's why 0 is Y. All right, Z, if I do Z right here, then again, I have 2 numbers associated with Z. It looks like 4 and -6. Just get them in the right order. So what's always first? X. So what's the point that goes with X? I have to go over first to -6. It's negative because I went to the left. All right, and then I have to go up to what? 4. So 4, you can see, is associated with Y here. So this would be 4. All right, and then real quick, let's practice quadrants again. So if I wanted to know what quadrant W is in, it would be right here. And this is quadrant 1. X, if I find X, X is right here. X is in quadrant what? 1, 2, we can label them, 3, and 4. So X is in quadrant 4. y. If I look at y, it's negative 2, 0, y was right here. What about y? It's not in a quadrant. It has no quadrant because it's on the line. And then z was over here, so if I try to remember 1, 2, this is quadrant 2, then I have all my quadrants there. All right, so guys, that's coordinate plane. It's made with the x and the y axis. It divides our graph into 4 quadrants. We've talked about those. Make sure you remember ordered pairs always start with x and then y. Remember when you're graphing to always go left and right first with x and then up or down. Be careful with your negatives because that tells you which direction to go. And then last thing I would remind you of is the point in the middle. We didn't really graph it on here, but we could have this point in the middle. It's usually used with an O, and it's called the origin. And the origin, if I wanted to give the coordinates for this point, would be 0, 0. It's right in the middle. You don't go up and you don't go left or right, so both of these coordinates are 0. All right, guys, hope that helps. I'll see you in class.